Animation has given us a lot of dark content over the years. The more experimental the show, the more likely we would be granted a character that took on the role of a murderer. So today, we wanted to discuss one type of killer in particular, the serial killer. But on that very dark and bloody note, I first want to mention our new channel, Blood Binge. We've spent the last 5 months planning this new project, which takes our good to evil format and adapts it to one of my favorite genres, horror films. We built an actual set, brought on some awesome new hosts, and even expanded our good to evil format in some pretty in-depth ways. Slasher and horror movies have some of the most complex morality of any genre, and we're excited to grow Blood Binge from the ground up. And I'm really proud of our team that's been working on it. If you like scary movies and our format here on Wicked Binge, please go subscribe. We've already started going through the Friday the 13th and Saw series, so check those videos out. Now, when it comes to cartoon serial killers, we want to specify the qualities that make them. According to the FBI website, the now agreed criteria is someone who has killed 3 or more people with a significant amount of time between the victims. That being said, we won't be covering spree killings or single massacres, at least not in this particular list. Today, we'll be measuring how evil we consider each character based on a few factors. First, though they may be responsible for a variety of deaths over a large amount of time, we have to take that character's intention into account. If they were neglectful and wound up causing casualties as a result, that isn't great, but it shows more grace than being outright ruthless. Second, if a character has a large body count due to protection or their work, they aren't going to be featured on this list unless they use their power to kill innocent people that inconvenience them. Third, and this kinda goes hand in hand, we will be taking into account the overall amount of victims and the method used to kill them. We also want to say that any character that suffers from a serious condition or environment where things are past their control will get some leniency with the ranking. With all that said, let's get started. We'll be starting with the least evil and working our way down to the most evil. Earning our first spot, we had to include Stan Smith. Now, most of the time, Stan only kills because he has to. He's even stated a few times that he doesn't feel guilt over his assassinations because it's to protect the people he cares about and the country he loves. But we've also seen more than a few times that Stan has happily pulled a gun on someone that simply gets in his way. And during a revealing call with his son, Stan even talks about being detached from taking human life, making the comment that he can pull the trigger while thinking about what to get for dinner. There was also an episode where Stan reveals he hasn't made a kill for the majority of his career in spite of everyone thinking otherwise, leading to him being encouraged to end a life to pass some sort of milestone.
Big macho Stan is a killing virgin.
Stan, though reluctant, doesn't refuse because he feels awful, but because he doubts his own abilities to be successful, relating the taking of life to being able to be manly. Moving on, we have Fat Tony in The Mob. The Simpsons don't feature a lot of killers outside of their Treehouse of Horror specials. The only constant threat, aside from Mr. Burns taking over everything, was being at the mercy of Fat Tony and his men. While we don't get to see a lot of the dirty deeds that take place, we do see them dispose of more than a few bodies throughout the show and go through a few trials. The same could be said for the Donbot and his henchmen in Matt Groening's other show, Futurama. Next, we're placing 2 chaotic forces together, Peter and the Giant Chicken. Now, Peter is a malicious jerk in a lot of later episodes, but that isn't really why we had to place these 2 on the list. Over the years, they've gotten into a lot of brawls, with the fights quickly escalating to a massive level. They've had a hand in ruining not only billions of dollars of equipment, but killing countless people in the crossfire of their grudge. Had they only done this once, we would simply place them as mass killers, but that isn't the case. Instead, we get multiple episodes resulting in crashed space shuttles, exploding trucks, fires, and collapsed buildings, all with a chance of hurting or killing more than a few people. Next up, we have Lois's brother, Patrick. After a traumatizing experience of walking in on his mother having sex with Jackie Gleason, Patrick developed a distaste for anyone overweight. He saw them as immoral and evil, needing to be taken out of society. We give some credit to Patrick, though. He admitted he suffered from a sickness and willingly went back to Brookfield to help overcome the issue.
I have to go back to the hospital, don't I?
When he came back to the show, it was to help Chris avoid being killed, helping the police to hunt down the person murdering campers. Next, we're going to rank Morty and Summer together. They were a little tough to place, but they have each taken part in some killing. Summer we see shoot several people on the renegade planet, while on the same adventure Morty took part in pulverizing quite a few warriors with the help of Armathy. We also see Morty start to get into the spirit of the Purge planet and shoot Rick in a rage, thinking the gun handed to him was real. They both fall lower on the list for different reasons. Morty because he has no healthy way to deal with his rage, and so gets into the swing of taking life on other planets when getting the chance. With Summer, though similar, she shows far more detachment from the act. It's hard to mention one character in particular, but we did want to mention some of the people in the show China, Illinois. To be specific, we wanted to cover some of the main cast. Frank, Steve, Babycakes, the Dean, and a few others have all taken part in gutting someone open for pretty insane reasons. In one instance, Frank is seen having a breakdown and going into his happy place before going on a rampage, but only after he and other teachers are pushed into a gruesome competition to try and keep their jobs. While the actions are disgraceful and appalling, we can see that this behavior is pretty accepted in their universe. Even when the police get involved, they don't appear to do much. Some people, such as the students or background characters, make comments about the morality of sparing a life, leading us to believe that there is a huge lack of compassion and human decency on campus. But hey, they even say in the theme song that no one should ever come to this school. We regret reviving the memory, but next we have King Tommy. For those that have seen the episode, you already know why he's placed on the list. Over the course of years, Tommy was able to survive by breeding with the life in Fruipyland to create weird hybrid children to feed on. Now, though Tommy clearly killed a lot of his offspring over the years, we don't place him lower because in order to stay alive, he didn't have much choice. Does it justify making the children he created just accept the life he gave them and teach them to see him as a god? No. It's still very, very disturbing. Next up, we have Stan's pet goldfish. Featured in an early season for a Halloween special, we can't place the pet lower on the list because it did come from a different reality where the rules were a bit warped. But there is no doubt that this fish murdered several people in Stan's home, and was more than happy to allow the small child to take the blame for the bodies. The fish was shown to be somewhat aware of its surroundings, taunting Stan throughout the episode. Moving on to Stewie Griffin. Though he's calmed down a lot over the years, Stewie has always been seen as the genius baby with little regard for human life. He's been seen making multiple attempts on his mother's life, even helping Peter to knock her out and leaving her to drown. He's pulled guns on other kids, joined Penelope to cause a variety of natural disasters for fun, has been seen getting rid of the man in white and a few of the local high school kids, and casually waited for the school therapist to pass on. Though not as bent on world domination as he once was, he has very few people he actually cares about. He still fantasizes about taking out his entire family, and has expressed that the only reason he hasn't is because he still had some growing up to do and some maturity to gain. Next, we have former hot dog eating champ Charles Yamamoto. After being defeated by Chris in a competition, Charles had snapped. The only reason we don't place him lower on our list is because he hadn't intended to kill more than just Chris. As Patrick pointed out when helping police, Charles has mistakenly killed a few other people when he confused them by their hair color or by the fact that they wore a hat. That doesn't make Charles' actions okay, but it shows that he was driven by a specific goal and would have stopped once he got rid of Chris. Had he paid more attention, he would have only had one person as his body count. Taking our next spot is Eric Cartman. While Eric has encouraged a lot of violent acts, there are two moments that get Eric placed on this list. The first is very well known among fans, the death of Scott Tenorman's parents. After being crossed by a bully, Eric sets things up to get Scott to literally get a taste of his own medicine. Now, some would argue that Eric wasn't the one that pulled the trigger and actually shot Scott's parents, but Eric was still the one who premeditated the murder by setting them into that scenario. The second instance was when Eric tried to get involved with NASCAR, trying to come off as poor and stupid. On race day, after lying to a driver to get him away from his car, Eric makes his way into the race car and runs over 11 people, killing them. We also want to mention another instance when going through anger management. When a man trying to provoke Eric calls him fat, Eric just starts texting, which we are quick to learn was with the therapist's wife, showing her information that led to her taking her own life while on the phone. Moving on, we have Cop Morty. Shown to be unlike many of the other Mortys on the Citadel, he resents being seen as an inferior and has been jaded from a long life among Ricks. He shows nothing but hostility and hate towards any other Mortys. taking out his internal issues on anyone resembling himself. It's exposed that he was the one that killed his old partner, and he was more than willing to take out his new Rick if it meant not being exposed as a dirty cop accepting money from Big Morty and his crew. We also see Cop Morty pull a gun on another, and even blows up a whole complex simply because he could, coldly stating it was just Morty's killing Mortys. Next we have Matthew the RB Killer. He had gone on a rampage simply because a sandwich was discontinued, hoping his killings would lead to the menu item being brought back. This man was clearly delusional, so we hesitate to place him much lower on our list.
I'm gonna cut your head off!
And his methods wound up working when, after the killings stopped, RB did bring back the big beef flopper like Matthew wanted. Next we have the left-hand killer. He didn't have much screen time, but we wanted to mention him on the list. He was a one-time character on South Park and was shown to be a very creepy and almost stereotypical murderer. To be honest, his behavior was more of an exaggeration to show how incompetent the police of the small mountain town could be. The most we gather is that the man was upset with Eric for not giving him credit for his murders. Moving on, we have our main Rick, C137. Now, many Ricks are shown to have a body count, but we see a lot more of it with our focus scientist. We credit that much of the killing happens to protect his family or rebel against the policies and restrictions of the Federation and Citadel, but Rick is also shown to kill people simply because they betrayed or crossed him, as with the Council. Not to mention the collateral damage caused on more than a few of the worlds he visited. Rick is more accepting of death being a factor in space and dimensional travel, which leads to him making comments about how he never comes back to a dimension or planet he caused too much trouble on, not wanting to face the aftermath. Next up is Penelope. A one-time character on Family Guy, she was a brief love interest to Stewie. Even in the first few moments of her time on screen, she showed how much of a monster she really was. She targets a young child that had picked on Stewie, giving the other boy a piece of taffy filled with superglue that ended up cutting off the child's air and leaving him dead. We also learn that she was able to murder her mother by sneaking up on her in the bathtub, and also held a variety of weapons like Stewie did.
She was taking a tub and somebody came in and cut her head off.
She starts encouraging Stewie to partake in some mass destruction with her, even making a game of it by pairing each tragedy with a theme. When Brian tried putting a stop to their friendship, Penelope attempted to kill Brian like she had so many others. But luckily, Stewie was able to put a stop to her killing the canine, and she was not featured on the show again. Considering her long track record of mayhem, we don't think she ever stopped her murderous ways. Next we have the hitman, Chromopolis Michael. While a polite enough guy and a well-liked character, he was still very ruthless. When handing his business card over to Morty, he candidly explained his profession and stated he was willing to take on any target, be them men, women, children, or the elderly. He didn't care because he just enjoyed killing. He wound up being a short-lived character with Morty's sense of right and wrong interfering, so we don't see him doing much that would make him fall further. We ultimately just take his word for it, but his word is pretty awful. Taking the next spot is the evil Morty, now known as President Morty on the Citadel. While we could rank him lower on the list, his motivations are where we cut him some slack. As far as the show is revealed, this Morty is trying to use his power to reform the Citadel and how it treats Mortys compared to Rick's. And so he ends up getting rid of anyone with a mentality he deems to be problematic, so his goal isn't ruined. Now, we aren't going to say that killing off your enemies is the way to go, but this is a world run by Ricks, and we see through the show that Ricks are more than happy to kill off a nuisance when it comes up. So Evil Morty is really just doing what he's come to learn as survival, which is why we give him a little leeway. Next is Goron the Mutilator. Upon first meeting, he comes off as a fun activities director for a resort. He's a burst of positive energy, awful at singing, and is well liked among guests and coworkers. But he is exposed as being a murderer of hundreds of people, if not more. We even see a picture Bullock pulls up, showing Goron standing on a pile of bodies with a wide grin on his face. When Francine and Stan try to assassinate him on Bullock's order, Goron attempts to kill the couple as he tries to flee, showing his true colors. Though he is a lovable SOB, we have to place Roger next, and this should not shock anyone. We've seen Roger impale nails into people, smash vases and wrenches over their heads, even take their skin.
Hey Jeff, good news! You're getting your skin back!
Roger is totally unconcerned with human life, to the point that he was willing to end all life on Earth just because Stan insulted him. Not to mention all of Roger's various personas, some of which are more than happy to stab a woman with a sword on her birthday, or crush a man's skull with his elbow. Up next, with the silver medal of evil, we have the talking gas Fart. He was freed by Morty after the teenager thought that the alien was wrongfully locked up, but we soon see what sort of ability Fart had. The gas was able to reach into a person's mind and emotionally manipulate them. We see that he uses this skill to get them away from police, with a few people willingly crashing into buildings and into one another while others were casualties in the madness. After they reach the opening to Fart's homeworld, the gas exposes his intent to return with all of his kind to eliminate all the inferior life they could. We know that the gas could create precious metals, but we have a good idea that this isn't the only reason why this creature was locked away. And finally, taking our top spot, the gold medal of evil has to go to the Warden from Super Jail. If you watched even part of a single episode of the series, there's a good chance you saw plenty of carnage. Super Jail was a vision the Warden revealed he came up with at a young age, seeing it as his own utopia. Frequently, the Warden is seen bored out of his mind when the prisoners are behaving, and so often organized competitions where he promised freedom to the last man standing. We could mention the prisoners themselves or the staff of the prison, but we feel it's more appropriate to place the blame for the environment solely on the Warden. Even when he's warned about the mayhem, he sees it as something delightful and treats the bloodbath as good news. A truly insane man with a lot of power. But what do you think? Who's the most evil serial killer in animation? Let us know in the comments section below. And if you want to see more blood, and you love our Good to Evil format as well as horror movies, make sure to subscribe to Blood Binge. We've already started covering the Saw and Friday the 13th franchises in our Good to Evil series. And we have plenty more horror content on the way. We're really excited about this project and we've put a lot of effort into it, so please check it out. But most importantly, stay wicked.